Yasha Legends of the Demon Blade is a game I've had my eyes on ever since I stumbled across its Kickstarter last year. It's an action roguelite that takes place in a fantastical version of the Edo period in Japan. Yasha follows the typical roguelite loop. You battle your way through small linear stages and fight bosses until you either win or die. When you return to the hub area, you can spend the resources you've gathered to get permanent upgrades for your weapons or to unlock passive abilities to grow your character in strength before starting a new run. After every death and every failure, you get slightly more powerful, increasing your chances of successfully completing a full run. It's certainly not a loop that everyone finds enjoyable, as it can get repetitive and tedious rather fast. The story is pretty simplistic. A fragile peace has held between humans and demons, with the two largely coexisting, until the nine-tailed fox, the ruler of demons, broke that peace and is attempting to take over the world. You can choose between 3 different protagonists, each with their own weapons, fighting style and storyline. You've got the sword-wielding ninja Shigure, who is the main character of the game and the most well-rounded and balanced of the 3. You've got the fast, hard-hitting, dual-wielding Oni emissary Sera, who can easily overwhelm any enemy with a flurry of attacks. And you've got the demon samurai Takatora, who can whittle down enemies from a distance with his bow before finishing them off with powerful melee attacks. I'm not going to go in depth for each of the characters' stories, but if you were expecting or hoping that there'd be a big interconnected story with each character expanding on it, you're going to be let down. The Legends part of the game's name is literal. Each character's story is essentially a retelling of the same tale of the character setting out to defeat the nine-tailed fox, with everyone's roles and backstories being altered. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is up to you, but I quite liked how the story was presented. Shigure sets out to discover the truth behind her mentor's disappearance and is seeking revenge for what happened to her village. Sera's storyline is more comical, with bits of seriousness sprinkled in. She's an Oni emissary, a demon, who has been exiled from her home and isn't allowed to return unless she captures the mythical Okami. There was a pretty funny Beavis and Butthead reference during one of the cutscenes in her story that had me chuckling, where Sera and Shigure were drawn to look like Beavis and Butthead. And then you have Takatora. I thought his story was the most interesting. He's a demon samurai duty-bound to obey his master's final wish of protecting his granddaughter. It was by far the most compelling and mature of the 3 storylines. Each character has 3 chapters to their story, with each chapter taking roughly 20 to 30 minutes to beat, and that's including all of the cutscenes. But each chapter involves playing through the exact same tiny 11 maps and defeating the exact same 6 bosses in the exact same order, only with different dialogue and cutscenes for the story to advance. By playing through a single chapter with a single character, you've already seen all of the maps, enemies and bosses that the game has to offer. Basically, within a half hour to an hour, you'll have seen most of what the game has to offer content-wise. So if the story or combat don't keep your interest held, you'll get burnt out fast from the repetitiveness. As for the combat, the game has a very fast-paced and skill-based combat system with the usual dodging mechanic and a parry and counter-attack system. When an enemy flashes yellow, if you react quick enough you can parry their attack, temporarily staggering them and allowing you to perform a powerful counter-attack or dish out a strong combo. The game really shines in its boss battles, and the mechanics will keep you on your toes throughout the fight. Trying to be greedy and sneaking in that extra hit or not paying attention to your surroundings can get you killed. My first time fighting the Kraken boss, I tried to get in a couple of extra hits and I couldn't make it to the rocks in time to protect myself from the tsunami, and I got washed away and killed. Each character also has 7 variations of their weapon to choose from, with each of these weapons offering different abilities. Some weapons might increase your base damage, or generate shields, or unleash powerful waves of water at the enemy, or some might apply burn to enemies, and so on. You're allowed to carry 2 different weapons, so you can experiment with them until you find 2 that suit your playstyle and synchronize well together. My go-to weapon combo for Shigure was the Undying Cuckoo, which generates a shield based on percentage of your max health, and the Crimson Autumn, which generates a flame aura around your character that deals damage to enemies inside it. This allowed me to focus on dishing out heavy damage while not having to worry about taking damage. And after some practice, I never even came close to dying with this weapon combo. As for Sarah, Sarah's damage output is insane, and she's definitely the most overpowered of the three characters. The crow's weapon can spawn shuttlecocks on the map, and if you dash into them, they bounce into enemies up to 3 times, dealing massive amounts of damage. These shuttlecocks, combined with her Fire Lotus weapon that shoots out a flaming drill that burns enemies and bounces around the map, damaging every enemy it passes through, meant I was clearing maps and bosses like they were nothing. You can also temporarily improve and alter the abilities of weapons throughout each run. After clearing each map area or after defeating a boss, you'll be granted a soul gem. These soul gems offer you a choice of one of 3 random upgrades for your weapon. These temporary upgrades can be anything from increased damage on light or heavy attacks to changing a skill's functionality entirely. The Crimson Autumn, for example, can be changed from generating a flame aura around you when its meter builds up to instead increasing your base damage by up to 250%. This upgrade, combined with the upgrades for increased damage on light and heavy attacks, allows you to dish out absurd amounts of damage, but you sacrifice your AoE and crowd control ability to do so. My favourite soul gem upgrade is for Takatore's Black Rattan Bow, which has a dash upgrade. This increases his dash distance by 50% while also dealing 400% of his base damage to any enemy he passes through. This allows you to not only safely keep your distance from enemies at all times, but it also kills anything that gets close to you. Alongside these soul gem upgrades, you can also find amulets that offer passive bonuses to your health, attack speed, damage, and so on. Amulets give you the option of choosing between a small passive buff called a Blessing or a much larger buff called Forbidden. But the Forbidden amulets come with a downside. They might increase your damage by 50%, but at the cost of increasing the damage you take by 25%. The gameplay loop, as I mentioned earlier, is the typical roguelite loop. You start in the town hub and travel out to fight until you either win or die. Enemies you defeat will drop gold, souls, weapon fragments, and food ingredients. After every boss fight, you'll stop in a demon festival area where you can rest up and recover some health, or you can use your gold to purchase some soul gems or amulets. You can also hand in the food ingredients to the ramen shop, which opens up access to purchasing food, which gives you additional buffs. Each demon festival area also has an NPC that allows you to compete in an optional bonus stage where you can win a free amulet, but failing to win will reduce your health by 50%. After a successful or failed run, you'll appear back at the town hub at the beginning of the game where you can spend the souls and weapon fragments you've gathered to purchase weapon upgrades or passive abilities to grow stronger. Early upgrades are often cheap and fairly reasonable price, but they quickly become incredibly expensive to the point you'll require several runs just to purchase a single upgrade, making many of them seemingly unattainable without pumping in silly amounts of time, which I just don't see anybody doing as the game is so light on content. When you complete all 3 chapters for a character, you unlock the Inferno Scroll, which basically gives you access to modifiers that allows you to customize your next playthrough. You can increase enemy damage, health, and spawns, and you can decrease your own health and health recovery. You can also have random lightning spawns on the map, as well as have enemies drop bombs on death. By using these modifiers and ramping up the difficulty of the game, you can increase the drop rates for souls, ingredients, and weapon fragments. Hell Mode also gives you access to a new type of weapon fragment that allows you to upgrade your weapons even further. I completed my first Hell Mode run at Hell Mode level 7, which is about half as high as it goes. Doing this, I only earned about 1,000 souls, which sounds like a lot, but it's not enough to purchase much of anything. Passive abilities start cheap for the first couple of upgrades, but they quickly become absurdly expensive and unattainable by jumping into the thousands for a single upgrade. The second Revive upgrade, for example, costs 9,999 souls, which would require about 10 run-throughs on Hell Mode level 7 to purchase. That's a bit much for a single upgrade. This wouldn't be so much a problem if the souls carried over and were shared across characters, but unfortunately they're not shared and they're character specific. Yet oddly, the ingredients you gathered and delivered to the ramen shop do carry over between characters. Yasha Legends of the Demon Blade is fun in short bursts. Its fast-paced combat is great fun, the diverse weapon selection offers you a lot of variety and allows you to drastically change up your playstyle, and it's got a beautiful soundtrack. But the repetitive and linear short levels, the complete lack of challenge, and how light the game is on content wears thin fast. You'll see just about everything the game has to offer after completing a single chapter with a single character. So would I recommend it? I've had to re-record this last portion of the video as something big just happened with the PC version of the game. The game was originally priced at $29.99 across all platforms, which made it difficult for me to recommend as that was more expensive than many other roguelites and roguelikes on the market while offering less content. But while I was editing this video, GameSource Entertainment, who are the publisher of the game, have apparently breached the contract and withdrew from their role as publisher for the PC version. The developers themselves have now taken over publishing duties for the PC version and have slashed the price to $13.99. At $13.99, I can safely say that this game is great value and it's definitely worth picking up at that price. For console players, the game remains priced at $29.99 as GameSource Entertainment are still publishing it on consoles. So for you console players, I'd highly recommend waiting for a sale. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching guys, and I will catch you on the next one.